everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning in to our show today where we're celebrating Women's History Month all month long. Today, we have a very special guest on our show, Stacy Barton. She is a show writer. She is an author. She's a mom. She's a grandma, even though she doesn't look like it. And she's on the show today. So I'm super excited to have her on, ask her questions, pick her brain. I am obsessed with her already. She's so cool. And I cannot wait for you all to meet her. So, Stacy, whenever you're ready, come on in.
Hey!
Hello, welcome.
Hi. It's great to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. Literally, you are so cool. I was just saying that, but you are so cool. I'm like looking at all the things you do, and you're a rock star.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't feel like a rock star.
You definitely are. I think it's like we were saying earlier in our pre-show meeting that you don't really think about you being a show writer, right? It's like, okay, this is what I do. After a while, it's like, this is it. But then it's stuff like this where we have moments for you to be able to sit back and really talk about what it is that you've done, what all you've accomplished. And I think that's pretty cool.
It is really fun. Before the pandemic, I was just busy working, and I didn't really think about what I did. I certainly didn't talk much about it. And over the pandemic, I've had an opportunity to talk to so many young people have reached out on LinkedIn and asked me to do things like this or be on their podcast or just talk about what it's like to, be a 20-year veteran.
That's so neat.
Yeah, it is neat.
When someone asks you what it is that you do, I'm sure if you meet someone somewhere and they're like, so what exactly do you do? How do you normally describe that?
I usually say I write, and then I wait to see if they're interested. And then they say, what do you write? And then I'll say, well, I work for Disney, SeaWorld, Ringling Circus, and then I write books. And so, and depending on if they're interested, like you, then we end up having a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
If not, it's like, we go get another cocktail.
Right. Exactly. Where did your interest for writing come from? How did you get into it?
Well, I started as a performer doing street theater on the streets of Epcot, actually.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So that picture of me in the kind of Renaissance costume there on the left, that's doing some commedia in Italy. And the one on the right is some of the original tacky tourists that we played in doing line entertainment at Epcot. So that was back in the early 80s. I was very young, I was 19. And I came down to Florida in my 1969 white Volkswagen VW Bug with 3 paper sacks of belongings and $150, I think.
Where did you move from?
Pennsylvania at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you moved down when you were 19?
When I was 19, I came down with a place to stay for 10 days and $150 and an audition with SAC Theater and never left.
Wow.
That was 1984, I want to say.
Wow. See, I resonate with that so much because I moved to Orlando when I was 19.
Yeah.
Not in 1984, but definitely that's so cool. And so you moved here, you decided you auditioned with SAC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then from there you wanted other avenues of performing as well. Correct?
Well, I went full time with SAC Theater, who at the time was providing contract entertainment for Disney.
Okay. Wow.
So I was immediately working for Disney, but as a contractor with SAC Theater, and then did that for the 80s and part of the 90s. And then in the 90s, I started having kids, and doing theater was a little rough with 4 kids at home. So I started writing. So by 2000, I was actually writing at Disney.
Wow. Did you feel like being a performer is what sparked your interest for writing specifically for themed entertainment?
It was really the avenue that opened up first. In terms of writing, I had always been a writer. I'd always been a poet and had written things, but it was really in SAC, I did some show writing. And so then when I was actually hit by a truck. And after I was in a car, but after I was hit by a truck, I closed my dance studio and started writing. And that was how I made a living from 2000 on. Oh, so it's been a wild ride, and I've loved every minute of it. The performing does make me super audience centric. So when I talk about themed entertainment and how to approach it and what you need to be successful, it's always from the standpoint of what's the audience's experience. Because when you're doing street theater like that, those pictures, if people don't like the show, if they're not involved, if it doesn't resonate with them, if they don't feel like they matter, they simply walk away.
Absolutely.
Walk away. So I learned really early on that I could think I was as funny or as fabulous as I wanted, but if I didn't engage the audience, it was pointless. And so that's been a value that has stayed really solidly with me my entire career, and really I think is can be seen in the work that I've done and the way that it touches audiences and engages them. It's super important to me.
Speaking of work that you've done, what all have you done? There's a lot. I know there's a lot, but what all have you done? What was your first show that you started with?
Well, when I was in SAC theater, this is in the 80s, because we did all this audience interactive work, WDI would bring us in to brainstorm Pleasure Island. And so I wasn't working directly for WDI, but we would be on all these brainstorm projects about what kind of venues should be on Pleasure Island. So we, of course, encouraged Comedy Warehouse because we wanted to perform there. And if anyone remembers the Adventurers Club, we did a lot of brainstorms around that because it was improv-esque, right? So you have a character or a scenario that you're working off of, but you're taking cues and altering it based on the audience. So that was my first taste of WDI style brainstorming, and I was totally hooked.
Of course, especially given your background in performing. Like, that stuff is fun.
That's fun. Oh yeah. And we had a blast. So we did a lot of that in the 80s. And then I think one of the early shows I did at Magic Kingdom was when they brought Cinderella in. So I think it was 2004. They swapped all these different shows. So like we got this one from Tokyo Disneyland, and they moved them all around. So I was tasked with turning the Cinderella that had been created for a Japanese audience into one that would work for an American audience.
Audience. Wow. So basically translating in terms of how it will come across for American viewers. Right.
So the concept of the show I didn't create because it had done that in Tokyo Disneyland. But they had there was one of the lines early on, because it came to me translated, of course, into English, because I do not read.
I was going to say, we'll add that to the list of things you do.
Right? No, not add that. But of course, it was just simply translated straight. So it was things like, "Please meet the Honorable Cinderella," which is not something that our kids and families would want to hear. They would want to hear, "The Beautiful Princess" or "The Magic," that kind of thing. Right. So I really had to change the language into what our audiences would expect to hear in English about Cinderella. And it was fun. It was my first big stage show. And then I think another one of the early ones that I did was Madame Carlotta on the lawn of the Haunted Mansion, and it's still playing. So, and at Halloween time during Mickey's Not So Scary, there's always a huge long line, for the Haunted Mansion. And so we created this show with Denise Case, who's now the, what is her title? Creative director of DCL, the cruise line. But at that time, she was a show director at Walt Disney World. And so we created this show on the lawn, which we brought Madame Carlotta out as though she was a resident from the Haunted Mansion, and she just does shtick kind of on the lawn with the guests as they're walking by the line. So that was pretty fun.
That's so neat. You when you said that, you just talking about the translation from Japan to here in terms of the show and the specific language you would use, and not by English and Japanese, you know what I mean, by language. That made me think, because you've done so many shows across the board. Do you ever find it to be a challenge when switching your brain for the audience? Does that make sense? Like Disney goers, the type of show they're going to watch is going to be so much different than park goers at SeaWorld.
Right, right. Yeah.
Did you ever find that to be a challenge?
Not a challenge that's uncomfortable, really.
Right,
I mean, I like context, and I'm very intuitive. So if I'm in the room, you know, the way themed entertainment works is they don't come to me and say, "Hey, Stacy, would you write us a show?" You know, there's people around the table. There's an objective. There's an IP. There's an intention. There's a budget. There's a plan, and then we bring it to life creatively. And so in those rooms, I'm just in that environment with those people. You know, my actress probably comes out, you know, and I feel and hear and the sound of what they're doing. I ask questions. I always ask, you know, who is your audience? And in those early conversations, I say sometimes, what are you up against? Like when I did one of the Shamu shows for SeaWorld, it was after Blackfin had come out, and they were really struggling in San Diego. And so they came to me and they said, we need an educational show, but it still has to be fun. But we need to impress upon people that there's value in what we do and the conservation. And so, so that one was a little bit challenging because there was a lot of information. There were a lot of conservationists, and I don't know if veterinarians is the right term. It's been a few years. I think that was in 14 or 15, but there were people definitely that had educational things that needed to get put in the script, but it's still to be an entertaining show. So we did some fun things with that. This was, again, like I think 2014. So it was early for this, but we did a thing where I had the host in the crowd asking questions and then throwing the questions up on the screen. It was all pre-produced, but it was a way to be virtually interactive with screen, kind of before that was really done anywhere else that I'd seen. But so I love hearing and finding new audiences and new storytelling types, and I just kind of do it, I guess, organically and feel what it sounds like.
I think something interesting about show writing is you have to be kind of like 10 steps ahead, because there's so many things that are happening. You have other shows, other places, you're competing essentially with whomever else. So who can produce the best show and for how long? But what do you think would be one of the coolest things about being a show writer specifically for themed entertainment?
Yeah, I think it goes back to those days playing on the streets of Epcot. You know, I mean, I want people to be enthralled. Whenever I run into a show, I always have to find my heart spot, my entrance to the story. And then I really love my role as a show writer because that's one of the things I bring to the table, right? You're at a table with all kinds of people, the show directors and producers and set designers and visual experts and costumers, and, you know, everybody's around the table trying to figure out, what is this show? How are we going to do it? And one of the things I look for is, where's the heart of the piece and what's the audience's entrance point? And then how do we make sure that we know what we're promising them and we know how we're going to deliver it? And then I'm constantly making sure, what are they taking away? Are they taking away what we promised them? And it's an emotional experience, even if it doesn't have to be, you know, like sweet, like Cinderella. It can be a haunted house. You know, I worked with SeaWorld and Busch Gardens on their Hallow Scream. And so those people have a very distinct emotion they want to feel. You know, they want to be terrified, or, you know, so whatever that promise is, as a show writer, I feel like that's one of the things I continually bring us back to. Like, that's a cool technology, that's a cool idea, but does it suit this story and this audience at this time? So those are some of my favorite things about show writing. One of the others is being able to write a narrative treatment that the whole team gets excited about.
Yes.
And then they can dive into it, you know, so it's good, strong nouns, good, strong verbs, paint the picture beautifully. and then all the disciplines can just charge ahead and do what they do. And then the words get less and less and less and less and less till, you know, if I've done my job well, there's very little dialogue and a lot of story.
That's awesome. Shows for me personally are like my favorite thing when I go to the theme parks, right? Because I have a heart condition. I can't do most of the rides wherever I am. And then, of course, kind of biased because I'm a performer. But one thing I always notice when I go and watch shows is I look around at the audience and I see them engaged. And it's grandmothers, it's parents, it's children, it's whomever their guardians are. It's a couple, it's someone by themselves, it's everyone can enjoy it. It's people, you know, and now that with shows, I feel like they're more understanding that as a theme park industry, making sure everyone is able to go and attend is accessible for everyone. So that's so neat because I feel like you're more, of course, you're audience based when it comes to your passion for your writing, and that's amazing. That's so cool. Do you have a favorite show that you've worked on?
I have been asked that so many times. I think I need to really come up with the answer to that. It's always the last one I just did.
Right. Hey, that's cool though. But
I do love the immersive stuff that I've done. So we started on Club Evil back in probably 08 or 09, and we used the affluent market. So these very affluent families that come and ask us to create these environments and these experiences for them. And this one we did several times at Disney Event Group. And then later the research and development from it caused them to open what was called Club Villain at the studios. I think there's a little trailer if you want to play that. It's just a promo trailer that they use.
I wanted to go there so bad because the Club Villain's gone now.
No, you're right. And this is Club Evil, which was what we did for several different private experiences, and they used that research and development to create Club Villain.
Well, let's watch the trailer then.
Yeah. Oops, I don't hear it.
It doesn't any sound, but I imagine it sounds something like.
Oh no, there's very fun sound. I guess that's my bad.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. Meet the villains. I'm sure they have some theatrical music.
Right. So the premise of this was that what if the Disney Divas of Evil got together and created their own club?
Wow.
And so each diva had their own floor show moment. There were cocktails designed for each, and that's Facilier was the host.
Facilier.
Right. Yes. And so you'll see, I think there's we had Ursula was created with all these tentacles that were actually puppets that could pull people in to her. I think there might be a shot of that somewhere there. Yeah, it goes fast.
And I'm supposed to be scared because this sign me up.
It's a party. Amazing. It's a party, and then they danced with the audience, got up and danced and partied all night long, and it was great fun. And it was super popular. You know, the whole villains thing now at Disney has its own franchise. Yeah. And we were working on this back in 07 and 08, long before that. And we were like, this is a hot thing. And so that was fun. So we've done different ones like that. So that one was called Club Villain. We did a few iterations of that. We did one where we took people into Alice's Wonderland, where we had a 40-foot tea table. Oh, that's Mary Poppins. That one was great too. We had them jump into the chalk painting, and a kabuki drop fell and revealed the whole room. And the performances was on the stage while they sat around it. And then the Alice in Wonderland, there's a puppet. The doorknob puppet was something that we created for the Alice in Wonderland show. And in this one, we took them into Alice's Wonderland. And of course, to get in, they had to go through the doorknob. So this was a puppet that actually worked. And the puppeteer was an improv comedian who could see the audience via video and respond to them in real time. And then when they went in, there was a 40-foot tea table that had pots that whistled and sang. And around the 40-foot tea table, there was a stage that performances happened all around the family. It was great fun. Yeah. So those immersive experiences are what I've had the most fun doing of late. You know, probably the past 5 or 6 years, we've done some really incredible work at taking people deep dive into, you know, like an attraction kind of, you know, on steroids come to life.
That's amazing. You know, I don't know if other people think the way that I think. I know there's somebody out there, but just to walk in somewhere and be like, who the heck came up with this stuff? Who is behind this? Who is the Oz behind this? I'm assuming it's not just one person. I mean, because
that is right. It's a huge team.
That is so cool. I'm not sure if you're able to discuss what is next, but is there anything currently that you are working on?
No, and not yet. Yeah, I'm pretty much covered in NDAs. I can only talk about things we've already done. But that kind of work, continuing to see, you know, how we can use what we learned from that in other applications, you know, on the cruise ship, in other theme parks. I'm hoping at some point we're able to do pop-up entertainment. I think that would be fun. But
we all know who would be behind it.
Well, we can hope. I mean, you never know who they'll pick.
I know. I know. Now somebody told me that you also worked with some Star Wars related things. Yes.
Oh, we did. So I worked for a while with the Floral and Gift team. Was just a team that did gift baskets and flowers. And the entertainment at Disney Event Group started working with the Floral and Gift team to create experiences. So it was story-based merchandise. And one of the ones we did was an in-room celebration with around Star Wars. So it was basically, we put a certain amount of stuff in the room, kind of decorated the room a bit. There was a banner on the door, and an augmented reality experience that started with a scavenger hunt in the room. And then on your phone was Ezra Bridgers from Rebels. And he set you on a mission that sent you in to the park to Star Tours. This was before Galaxy's Edge. And so you had a mission, you had to ride in a disguise on Star Tours. And there were, I think it was QR codes was the technology at the time that helped them finish their mission. And once they finished the Star Tours ride and did the final code, they got back to the resort room, and that code unlocked this famous box. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, so I forget what it was. Some kind of cube that was in the movie, and it had never been created anywhere else. We created it just for that experience.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. And that was probably at least 5 years ago that we were doing that. I don't think they do it now, but it was some pretty cool experimenting with how to use augmented reality, how to create an experience that took the guest from the theme park, from the resort room to the theme park and back again, to kind of give them a
story going. You're immersed.
Yeah, right.
And I know there's the Star Wars Hotel coming soon, if it isn't already finished.
Yeah, I was in some of the early brainstorms for that, just in connection to what we had done, not with what ended up happening, but that was fun when they were first thinking about it and talking about it. And, yeah.
So you're writing, essentially, it goes beyond the theme park per se, like just theme park as a whole. Like you're in the resorts, you also are an author, so you have your own stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. You're an author, which again, I'm in awe of you. I think you're amazing. I just published my first children's book, so I'm like, oh my gosh, an author, a real author. But you have a children's book, correct?
Well, I have 4 books that you can buy retail, as they say.
Okay.
One of them is a children's book. Bob and I went hunting today. Surviving Nashville is a collection of short stories. Like Summer Grass is a book of poetry about children growing up and leaving home. And Lily Harp is my most recent one. And it's a novella set off the southwest coast of Florida in the 70s about a young girl. And then I have probably 5 other children's books. One of them, I think there's another picture of her name is Auntie Jingle. Yeah. So I have done other books that complemented physical experiences, like some of those affluent events that we do will have a storybook that encapsulates their whole night that they take away as a memory. So that's one of those. I think there's about 5 of those kinds of books that were done. Not all of them are for Disney. Probably 3 of them are for Disney. 2 or 3 of them are for other clients that had some sort of event that needed a picture book with it. So it's very fun. So I love rhyming picture books. But it's funny because I have this sort of Disney side, and then some of my books like Lily Harp and Surviving Nashville are fairly dark. They deal with harder things. And it's not that Disney doesn't, it's just a different application, a different way of storytelling. So I love being able to kind of be broad. I love being able to do Disney and other themed experiences. And I love being able to write my own stuff. And it's just been I've always been a contractor. So that has really enabled me to do so many different things. And it was really helpful too, when I think we talked earlier, I raised 4 kids. My husband and I had 4 kids. And so being a contractor kind of allowed me to be home and to still have artistry and to make some money, but to be on a schedule that would work for my family. That was important to me as a mom. I wanted to be around.
You have 4 kids. Correct.
I do.
4 kids.
They're grown.
You have 4 children, and you also a grandmother. And I was saying when I was introducing you that you don't look like a grandmother, but I guess who looks? I mean, there is no standard like a grandmother.
I was very young. I was very young when I got married, and my oldest daughter was very young when she had kids. So, those are my kids there. That's Whitney on the left, and Olivia, and Taylor, and Meredith. And then my grandbabies are Dawson and Harper.
They're so cute. They're beautiful.
They're my loves.
That is amazing.
Amazing people.
Do you feel that having a family and being a mother and now a grandparent have any influence on your actual writing itself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I say often to Disney people, I am the demographic.
Right.
Like my kids, in terms of the movie IP, right? So my oldest daughter was 18 months when The Little Mermaid came out. So I went through all that Disney new animation reawakening with my kids. And now my kids are taking their kids to Disney. So, I feel like I'm always in the demographic somewhere.
Right. Somewhere you will find yourself.
Right.
That's amazing. That's so, I mean, now for your own work, I know that you said that you don't have a favorite show that you've worked on, but do you have a favorite of your own work?
Oh, that's just such a hard question. I like my children, all the shows and all the books and all the stories. I have a soft spot in my heart for Surviving Nashville.
Okay.
And that's a collection of short stories. And you can find all of my books on Amazon.
Yes.
You find out that there is another Stacy Barton with a book out. That's not me. So when you go on Amazon, if I don't have 4 or 5 books, it's the wrong Stacy Barton.
Do you also have Like Summer Grass? Is that one of yours?
Yeah, that's there probably is a link on Amazon. I don't think you can buy that book on Amazon, but you can find it at Finishing Line Press. But most of my books you can find on LinkedIn. I mean, on Amazon.
One of those. Yes. So we actually pulled up right there in the comments.
Yeah.
People are watching that you can find Stacy's books on Amazon. Like she said, Like Summer Grass is not available on Amazon. However, the ISBN number is on there. So if you just put that in on Google, you'll be able to find it somewhere.
Yeah, it's Finishing Line Press is the name of that publishing house. And then I think one of the shows that we did recently, last year, we took a family to Santa's workshop in the North Pole.
That's so cool.
So we took over a bank of ballrooms and went inside, and we had created a frozen wishing well. So it went, a North Pole wishing well. So it had a pole like the North Pole and like frozen fountains. And there was a little girl who had worn the pixie dust that came in their invitation around her neck. She was 7. And she was like, will it make me fly? Will it make my doll talk? And I was like, oh dear. Because one of my big things is to make sure that you don't just say, you can dream anything you want and it'll happen, because some child might say, I don't want my parents to get divorced and I can't make that come true. Right. You know? So we were like, okay, tell her we'll have something very special that it will do. And so she poured her pixie dust into the fountain. The room swirled, was covered in flocked, winter trees. We were at the North Pole and the curtains parted and there was Santa's castle workshop, huge in front of them. And out the big double doors came a bevy of elves who started singing, brought the family inside Santa's workshop. There was a stage in the center of the room with 4 tables that spoked out. The whole room was decked out as Santa's workshop. The family sat at the tables and it was a full-on musical on that stage in the middle of the room. The elves came and went. I think there were 20, some of them, 24, a couple dozen. And they sang and danced and they did improv and they taught the family how to be elves. And the family ate between show numbers. And then, of course, when it was time for, I forgot the really important part. This particular night was the night that the first letters to Santa arrived at the workshop, because the family was coming on like November 17th. So we had to have some reason why they were there. Right, so this was the night the letters were coming. So we get to that point in the night where the tree, Santa's big tree, is going to light up and the star on the top is going to shine out this huge glass window and make the way for all the letters to come by magic into Santa's workshop. And the tree starts to light up. And of course, it fizzles out and stops. And it's like, oh no, what's going to happen? So of course there wasn't enough believing down south. So the elves get the family up and they gather around the tree and they sing this beautiful song that Greg Smith, the composer for Happily Ever After fireworks show, worked with us on the song. And we created this gorgeous song about dreaming and wishing and believing, of course, because it's Disney. And the tree lit up, the star shone out the window, and the huge letter machine in the corner billowed up with all the letters from the children and came streaming out into the room. And then all the family had to go pick up the letters. And then they took the letters and got the item that child wanted and built it and put it in Santa's sleigh. And I wrote all of those letters with my non-dominant hand. Every one, there were like 80, I think. They were from all over the world. And so the family finished up, and when Santa comes in, of course, right? Santa comes in and they're just tickled pink. And the little girl that had tipped her pixie dust in the fountain, he leans down and he says, it's all because of you. And she's just wiggling, kicking her little feet. And by the time they left and the family's back out by the wishing well, and Santa and all the elves are in front of the castle saying goodbye, the dad is crying, the teenagers are all arm in arm, and the little kids are just bouncing up and down and waving goodbye to Santa. And the curtain closes and off they went.
Stacy Barton, a writer. Because you just completely immersed me in just describing that. And that this is, like you said, audience based.
Yeah.
You can never take those memories away.
No, and those people could spend their money on anything, and they want to do something that makes a memory. And they have said to us that over the pandemic, their family, and this was like 40 people, their family has watched and rewatched the video of that night to encourage them during the pandemic. And it's lifted their spirits. And yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
That is, I have like chill bumps. That's so now I need to watch the video, but I feel like I've already seen it. Just we have a comment that's so magical. I couldn't agree more, Kelsey. That is so magical. It's, again, like for myself as a theme park performer, this is what we do, right? This is we bring these things to life, and it's when you get to watch their reactions, it's just, it's incredible. That's
yeah.
incredible. Do you what I know you can't speak about things that are going to happen next in terms of things of NDAs, but for you personally, what is it that you want to do next? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm actively looking for work. So if anyone has work for me, let me know. Send me a message. Yeah, I'm looking at being involved in creating theme parks, creating attractions, building things, building experiences, finding other ways to immerse people in things that they love. I've worked with some companies on story branding, how to tell your story to the world, how to know who your audience is. But I'm most excited about finding new and innovative ways to make the audience an integral part, to make them matter, to make them, I think when we come back from the pandemic, people are going to be, the trend was already there. The trend to have people more immersed, the trend to have people more integral to the show, more participating. All those trends were in place, right, when we hit the pandemic. And I think when we come back, it's just going to be a roar. And I think the people that, thank you. I think the people that have thought about how do we make the audience the star? How do we put the audience in the center of the universe? How do we make them feel as though they matter, as though the show can't finish without them? Yeah. I think the studios, the design firms, the theme parks, the cruise ships, the whatever it is, the people that can nail that can really provide something that fulfills that deep need that was already there, that now is like bursting at the seams, and people are starved for interaction and connection. And I think the people that are running ahead of that train are going to be the new Waltz. I don't know. It might be Disney. It might be someone else. But I think it's the people that are paying attention to, your generation. You guys grew up in the middle of everything, right? You could rewatch the videos. You had social media. You had phones. You're used to being in the middle of your own story, right? And telling your own story. And so that whole generation is pressing, I think, that this immersive experience. And there are people doing amazing things on the immersive front. As amazing as I think the ones we do, I've heard some other things about people taking over a castle for an entire weekend. I'm like, whoa, that blows me away. So I think those are the things I'm excited about figuring out how we can do it even more and better. And I think it's not always technology. I mean, I do think that there's going to be some innovative ways that people have a computer in their pocket now, right? The phone, maybe the phone will be used in some new and different ways, but it's going to have to be to connect people, not just to stick them in their phone, right? But other than that, I really think that I hope we move back into more high touch, like the pictures you showed in the beginning of me working in the theme park, where I saw people, I looked in their face, I brought them up and they were a star of the show. That kind of high touch thing, you just can't replace that. Yeah. Sorry, I rattled on there for a whole time.
I love it. Do you find that, because I know you're passionate, I can feel through this call. Yeah. Do you find that your passion is what drives you from continuing those brand new ideas, those fresh, your content? Like, yeah, do you find that your passion is what drives you?
Absolutely. And I am fascinated by the creative process.
Yeah.
It's a river you can trust. Mm-hmm. It is always there when you come up against the, oh no, like that Santa's workshop. It was supposed to have 2 stories with balconies for the elves to come out and toss tinsel down, and the budget changed and we couldn't afford a second story.
Wow.
So we just went back and went, what's the heart? What do we have to tell this story? So the creative process is always fascinating to me, and there's always more creativity. There's always an answer. There's always a solution if you just continue in that creative process and that river and pull in the experts around you and ask for help and go back and remember, why are we doing this? What's the promise to the audience? How are we delivering it? And what do they take away? It better be emotional.
That's amazing. I love that. It's refreshing to hear that whomever it is behind and part of this team behind the doors feels this passion for us, for us who's watching it, because we're the ones that are attending, but I for myself, I'm like listening to you in someone who's brand new into this stuff, 25, and I haven't ever been in a writing room. How long did it take for you to, if you ever felt this way, to be like, I'm putting myself out there. Here's my art, essentially. Here's my work. Here's my thoughts. Here's my creativity. Here's my passion. Will you accept it?
Yeah.
Was that nervous? Or was that nerve-wracking at first?
So because in themed entertainment, it's so completely collaborative, right? It's not like writing a book and sending it to an editor where it's complete and you're handing it. It's a collaborative process. But sure, there are times like I'm not usually nervous about the first narrative treatment, but when it comes to maybe sometimes, I don't know, when it comes to the script, the first time that the director reads the script, I'm like hoping that they like it. And then there's always changes,
right?
Always ever changing. I say to people, anyone who's interested in themed entertainment writing, you better be interested in rewriting.
Right.
It's way more about rewriting and recreating than it is about creating. And like I said before, I don't get a blank page. They don't go, hey, Stacy, what do you think should be on the castle stage? Or, hey, Stacy, what should we do for a parade? It doesn't come like that.
Right.
So there's a lot of shared ownership in the creative ideas. But there's times where I'm like, oh, I hope they like it.
Wow. Well, thank you. That makes me feel better, because I feel like I would be nervous. But we have some comments asking questions.
Oh, sure.
Brian asked, have you done any work with augmented reality? What are your thoughts?
Just the one Star Wars piece that we did that used so the message on their phone on the augmented reality, the app was dovetailed into, I think, the Star Wars app. And so we worked with Ezra Bridgers. That was such a complete experience that it wasn't just the augmented reality moment, right? The augmented reality moment was pretty flashy because it was, again, I think 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. So it was still fairly new. So that whole, the app experience and the actual augmented reality was really cool, but it was really one piece involved in a much bigger story, a lot more elaborate things that happened. Some of them were super high touch, like following the scavenger hunt in the room to find your pieces of Imperial gear that you were going to wear to be a spy on the Star Tours ride. And it was super successful. People loved it because it was a character that they knew from Rebels, and yet it was no one. But if you purchased that experience, you were the only one that ever saw that. It didn't live anywhere else, and so it was really special, and people got super excited about it. I don't have a lot to say about the technology of it, except it is technology. And it used inside a story where the audience matters. It's magical. Just used for the sake of augmented reality for someone like me, it's not magical. It's just technology. Right. So that's my feeling about those kind of technologies.
Maybe you'll have some more projects to share with us when we have you back in the future.
Oh, always. I'm always happy to share what I'm working on.
Kelsey had a question as well. In your previous projects, what are the most common emotions you want the audience to walk away with?
I am often on the projects that are sort of tender. So I want people to feel a sense of belonging. Some of those shows are really important to me. A sense of togetherness, a sense of family. I did the fireworks show for the cast service celebration, and that's the Disney's. They bring everyone who's got 20 years or more into the park, and they have their own special night. And so we did the fireworks show for them. So you would think a fireworks show can't be that sentimental, but we really crafted it to be the sensation of what are the markers of your life, you know, when you got married or when you had kids or when you bought a house, or what are those markers in life? Because these are people that are veteran Disney cast members. So where are those markers of your life, and what Disney movies or show moments or attractions were opening or closing or coming out in those segments? So we strung together all this music and all these memory lane for them, so that the whole fireworks show was really, really sentimental and heartfelt. And it's been running since 2011, I think.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, I think I love those the most, those kind of tender heart ones. But I can do the other ones, the heroic, you know, the Marvel. I've done some Marvel stuff and some
really
stuff. Yeah. Mostly an experiential situation where really geeked out photo moments, right? Where you're in the picture with the Marvel superhero holding something, and the screen behind you is doing something, and you know, fun stuff like that.
You're so cool. Well, I have a question for the.
All right.
Asking this, feel free if you all are watching to load in some more questions, and we'll get to them. But what advice do you have for anyone who's watching or rewatching when they are able to watch it later on? What advice do you have for people who are interested in show writing, or not even just show writing, but being an author, being a writer, freelance work of any kind? What advice do you have for them that want to get involved with it?
You know, it's such a different world than when I started. You know, when I started at Walt Disney World in 2000, I mean, I'm not saying there were no other writers, but writers weren't used. Show directors did most of their writing. And I like to feel like I had something to do with that, the merge into using full-time writers. I always wanted to stay a contractor. But I think generally just find ways to write, right? So if you're trying to get in a themed experience, see if there's an event, see if there's a haunted house, or see if there's a local charity that's creating an experience that you can be a part of, maybe an environmental concern. I worked with a class from, it's in Austin, University of Texas, I think, in Austin, and they were doing an installation to bring awareness to the river that runs through Austin. And so whatever's happening in your world and where you are, things that you're passionate about, find a way to write for them, even if it's not for pay necessarily, but write for them, build a portfolio. And if you can get someone to give you a job writing, I always say, listen really carefully. Listen to what they want, listen to what they need, apply what you know about good story, and give it to them better than they expected, sooner than they'd hoped. And you just build a case for, oh, I want to work with her, I want to work with him, because they delivered. And then those 3 questions, I would say, if you're already in the writing world, or really any part of themed entertainment, it's just that audience-centric. What are you promising the audience? How are you going to deliver it? And what are they going to take away? And asking those questions as you create an experience, as you create an event, as you create a show, even a book, even a children's book, you know, what do you want them to feel when they close it? You know, what do you want them to feel when they're in the middle of it? Like my children's book, Bob and I Went Hunting Today, is about a little girl who spends the day with her grandmother who's bald from cancer treatment. And it's about all the adventures that they have throughout the day, and how they see God in the sunset, and how they go home together and snuggle. And, you know, it just write what you love to write, and find someone who wants that, you know.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. Well, I think there's another question that I had, and this is more centered around Women's History Month. Is it History Month, or are we just in
Women's Month? I think it's both.
I think so too, because we also had
history
National Day like last week. What does it mean to be a woman as a writer in this industry, as an author? What does it mean to you? I know that might be a weird question, but I think, for here specifically, like TETV, we promote diversity and inclusion, and that includes us women, right? So I feel personally like we're able to bring a different side, a different story, a different outlook. So what does it mean to you?
Well, I am often one of the only women at the table. I will say that. But in the conversations I've had over the pandemic and the students I've talked to at colleges, the TIA Next Gen groups at colleges across the country, and young writers and theme park people that have reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked for Zoom chats, I've been thrilled that so many of them are women. Now, I don't know if I'm hoping that's because more women are getting involved. It may have been because I'm a woman. They were like, oh my God, there's a woman in the room. But I think it's definitely necessary. I mean, gender plays a role and it doesn't play a role. That you can have feminine attributes no matter how you identify, but certainly the perspective of a mom, of someone who has children, of someone who has walked through hard things with their kids or friends' children, it brings a, I don't know, for me, it's helped bring a nuance to delivering stories to families that I think you would lose if you didn't have any women involved. And one of my biggest pet peeves about empowering women is to give women characters in shows that are male, that are like fight, give her a weapon and make her win. That is not me. That's not the best of feminine. That's like giving a woman a man's role, Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's ways to talk about empowering women that aren't making us masculine-like or combative. I want something other than that. I want us to be praised and respected and valued for the connection we bring. And I want us to be empowered to connect and not just, to win something. That's not interesting to me.
Absolutely. 100%. That's, I completely, I'm so sorry. My dogs are barking. We love live broadcasts. No, but that's amazing. I think for myself, just one of the reasons why I think you're so cool is that, there aren't too many women at those tables. I know that being part of this newer generation, and I want to see stuff like this. I want to have conversations like this. And I believe it is Women's History Month. I think I'm having like just a short brain moment, but I know that we're honoring women all month, and we should of course honor women all the time, no matter what month. It is Women's History Month. Thank you. Just told me it's Women's History Month. I know I even said that at the beginning of the show, but
you're on point.
So I got super immersed. But I believe we don't have any more questions in the comments. But is there anything that you wanted to leave us off with?
Wow. I think that there is a way as women to find our own balance of work and play and home. And, you can't have everything. You can't be home with your kids and working 50 hours a week, right? You can't do both, but you can do both. You can make a way. It is possible. I was fortunate to have a partner. I don't know what it would be like if I didn't have a partner. That would be much harder to raise 4 kids and work and not have a partner. But I think there are really creative ways. And I think we as women are creative at the deepest sort of level, because we have to figure that shit out. We got to figure out how are we going to do that job? How are we going to get that gig done? How am I going to meet that deadline? I got to go to my kids' dance studio, and I got to go to the ball field, and I got to cook supper. and I'm not saying we should do everything and make ourselves run ragged. I don't believe in that. But I think that there are ways for us as women to find our way, whatever that looks like, whatever that looks like. I think we are gifted creators. I think that is just true.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you a million times, Stacy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Patrick, for letting me come in here and show up and guest host for this week. CJ and Trevor in the back that are our producers. And also, I want to give a shout out to follow TETV. We have tons of people on here all the time. We're honoring women's all month because it is Women's History Month. And follow our newsletter. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, Stacy, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Pick your brain.
And you can find me on LinkedIn. If anybody who saw the show, come on to LinkedIn, say, hey, I saw you on TETV, and we can chat. Follow me. It's fun.
I'm glad you said that because I wanted to say it, but I was like, I don't know if she's.
Oh, absolutely. I have an open door policy. We all got to help each other out right now. I take interviews, I give them.
I will be one of those people. And of course, also, please type in Stacy Barton on Amazon. Check out her books. She's incredible. And any of those who are watching, she is looking for some freelance work. So hit her up. Thank you all so much for tuning in and have a great night.